Hey guys, so I have added the goblin to the scene. So if you remember, I was trying to actually export it into Unity, but it turns out that the parented object, which is the club, is actually not showing properly. So if I were to play it, let me drag the animations. Okay, so here, if I show over here, make this default, and if you see in the preview, the goblin isn't actually holding the club. Okay, so we'll have to make do with this one, okay, because I really don't know how to fix this. All right, but it's fine. All right, because for the other animation seems it's kind of working even if the object isn't attached to it. All right, but hey, we're gonna go ahead and implement the spawner code for spawning the goblin, and so that it moves towards the player position. All right, okay, so for the first step we need to make a spawner. Okay, so to make a spawner we need to make sure the goblin spawns at different points. So I've created a spawner object with the goblin spawner script. Alright, and if I go over here, we have a goblin object reference. Alright, and it's gonna serialize, initialize with the prefab, and then we have the static goblin list so that we can later on use this list. And I set it to static so that I can use the class name to access it, and since it's public, it's publicly accessible. And then next we have the plane. Now here's the tricky part. The goblin is supposed to be spawning within this plane. Okay, I've actually baked the NavMesh, but I'll tell you about it soon. But for now, just note that I basically have this plane over here, and this plane has a box collider, right, as a mesh render, right? Okay, the mesh render component, that's what we are getting the component of. Okay, get component of the plane. Now the thing about spawning within the plane is that it should be spawning within this plane, so we need to get the size of the plane. That means the width and height, and the width, height and length. Yeah, but since we are spawning it along the width and not on height but length, width and height, sorry, width and length, so what we are gonna do is randomly spawn them between X and Z, because if you see here in the plane we have the Z and X axis. Okay, the goblin is gonna spawn over here. It's not gonna spawn up on the up on the sky, right, because goblins can't fly anyways. But we are gonna basically setting the Y is equal to 0 here, because we need to make sure the goblins actually spawn on the ground. And then we are returning the position, and using that position we are gonna instantiate it at that position. So we are setting the transform that position to random pos. Okay, and we are adding the every new goblin spawns, we are adding it to the list, and we are gonna later modify this list and use it in a different script for checking if the goblin has taken a hit or damage, or we got damage from the goblin, and so on. All right, so with that done, let's go ahead and run the script. So over here, for now, based on what I have, it spawns a goblin all the way over there. All right, it's within the plane. And then let me just show you the spawner. If you see here, we have a time interval going on. Every 10 seconds it's gonna spawn a new goblin. But yeah, let's see, there's the next goblin and there's the other goblin. Great, we have the goblin working. All right, the goblin spawning working. Now the next thing I did is add a NavMesh. NavMesh is a pretty useful tool for navigating around a particular area. So if I suppose have this plane right here, we want it to navigate through this plane. So the goblin has to follow the player, right? Because it's gonna attack the player, so it definitely has to go towards it. All right, now the most basic thing normally anyone would do for any such script is vector 3 dot move towards function, right? Great, but there's a issue with this, is that you need to have an offset value, and what if you try this method, all right, what it's gonna do without the offset and without the without the constraints, it's gonna overlap with the player mesh, and that's not something we want. We want it to basically ensure that the goblin right here is attacking the player. Let's see, we need to make sure the goblin is attacking the player, but it's not overlapping with it. All right, if it overlaps, it's gonna look bad. All right, so that's what we're gonna avoid it through NavMesh. All right, so to add NavMesh, you need to go to, I think there is an AI option here. Okay, the AI navigation. Okay, that is how you choose it, but if you do not have it, you can go to package manager, and under Unity registry there is an AI navigation. You need to add this package, and then you can access the navigation option from here. All right, great. So to add the NavMesh, all right, we need to make sure we are actually baking it. All right, we have to bake the NavMesh into the plane it's gonna navigate on. So this is the plane right here, and what you have to do is basically add component NavMesh surface. Okay, when you do that, it's gonna show you the option of baking it, and it's gonna by default it is alright. Okay, so just bake it and you'll get this color. Okay, it will show you a slightly blue color, okay, a light blue color, and with that you can actually do stuff with it. It's gonna navigate within this blue bound. Okay, now with that done, let's go ahead and see what's going on with the goblin. All right, we need to do one more thing. All right, so we need to have a player follow script, okay, which I have over here, and then we need to add the NavMesh agent. That means this prefab or this goblin right here will be a agent that's gonna be able to navigate on this NavMesh. All right, so set the stop distance to 2.5 so that it maintains a 2.5 distance from the player's perspective. All right, and then what we are gonna do is go over to the script right here and include the using Unity engine.ai, because we are including the AI package navigation. All right, and with that we are gonna access the player. All right, so now here's the thing, why did I use game object dot find game object with tag player instead of actually serialized field and then initializing? Well, that's because our goblin is a prefab, and prefabs are not initially available on the scene. All right, that means I won't be able to initialize it. Okay, if suppose I had if I were to initialize something with a serialized field something, then it should be available on the scene view. Otherwise you can only serialize field prefabs. All right, so yeah, that's basically about it. All right, and then there is a really neat function to make sure the agent goes to the player's destination. So to do that, we have this public NavMesh component, NavMesh agent. Okay, and it's basically just the goblin, or you can either do transform dot get component game object dot get component NavMesh agent, or okay, because we are ultimately getting it from here, but you can do this way as well. Okay, I'm gonna share a really neat tutorial on NavMesh that I found on YouTube, and you can understand from his video. All right, I got to know about NavMesh from him. But anyways, this is a pretty neat way of actually getting the goblin go towards the player. So right now it's actually disabled because I wanted to show the spawn first. So I'm gonna go ahead and enable both of these. Alright, now let's go ahead and play the scene. And now over here, if you see, hey, the goblin is running towards us. Oh, neat. And now it doesn't have the attack functionality because I haven't added the script to actually make it attack me. Alright, now that's another goblin following me, and if I stop in here, it's gonna maintain a distance of 2.5. alright, which is great. You can increase the stop distance too. Alright, and well, the basic point is you have to hit it. Okay, I haven't made the script for that as well, but I'm gonna do that soon. Alright, but this is a really new thing I learned in today is about NavMesh. NavMesh is a pretty neat way of actually making enemies or any object follow through the or navigate through a mesh. It can be used for any suppose you have cars or any vehicles that you wanted to follow along a certain path, you can use this, right? And yeah, that's basically about it, and I'm gonna see you on the next devlog. Alright,